hell are you?
Jennifer Walters, attorney at law.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Harriet, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, Episode 1. First of all, in celebration of Marvel's fourth female lead, Jane Foster as the Mighty Thor has been added to the intro right here. Now, the intro begins with Jennifer Walters practicing her closing argument, speaking directly to the camera. Now, I say speaking to the camera and not to the audience for a reason. When characters speak to the audience, it's called breaking the fourth wall, because it's a very old term from theater when an actor would stop pretending there was a fourth wall of the stage and would speak directly to the audience.
Yeah, we know, like Deadpool and stuff.
Oh, hello.
Yes, like Deadpool, but She-Hulk was actually one of the first Marvel characters to break the fourth wall. She did it years before Deadpool was even created. In fact, in her 80s comics, she would even rip through a comic's page into the next page or use panels as a shortcut to teleport long distances. So this opening shot is not Jennifer breaking the fourth wall and talking to us, but she is laying the groundwork for breaking the fourth wall just a bit later. Her opening line cuts to the theme of the series, and really the theme of the MCU.
What is the responsibility of those with power?
This theme speaks to the heart of Marvel Comics. In the golden age of comics, Steven Rogers signs up to get powers because he has a responsibility to serve his country.
Bucky, come on, there are men laying down their lives.
Marvel's Silver Age was kicked off with the Fantastic Four, and just like a few seconds after they got their powers, they swore to use their powers to help humankind. And Spider-Man quite famously tried to use his powers for his own financial gain before realizing,
With great power,
There must also come
great responsibility.
the court case Jennifer is trying centers on the great power of a corporation, which I have a theory about which evil corporation that I'm going to get into a little later in the video. In this case, it's not that the corporation used their power for evil, it's whether they use their power to not help. The case is being tried on whether or not their neglect willfully caused problems. In the same way, does Jennifer choosing to live her own life put the world at risk?
And who's gonna protect the world if it isn't people like us?
If she chooses not to save one, is there blood on her hands? And the shelf in her office displays a lot of fun set dressing that has nothing to do with superheroes, because at this point, Jen is trying to avoid the superhero life. These are all items you would expect to see in the office of a young lawyer in Los Angeles. A book about badass women, a UCLA pennant, a UCLA Bruin, an RBG bobblehead, and a mug that says, "See you later, litigator." During her monologue, the man interrupts her and tells her to smile.
More smiles.
Something that women love hearing.
How about a smile for me, huh?
What, no smile?
This character is Dennis Bukowski, who first appeared all the way back in The Savage She-Hulk as one of Jen's early legal nemeses. The final sentence of her closing argument
Because those with the most power have the most to answer for.
is another recurring theme in the MCU. Tony believed that since he created Ultron, he needed to accept a curb on his power.
We need to be put in check. Whatever form that takes, I'm game.
Natasha and Steve took down S.H.I.E.L.D. because the organization overreached with their power, and Thunderbolt Ross hunted down Bruce Banner for basically the exact same reason, to keep power in check. Now, one character that did not appear in this episode is the Abomination, but we know from the trailers that he's going to appear in the show. Emil Blonsky can now change back and forth from being the Abomination, which is a really cool power to have, except that, unlike Professor Hulk, he loses his hair every time he gets strong. No wonder he wrecked everything after he transformed. He lost his hair in like a second. Someone really should have told this rampaging gamma monster that the best way to prevent hair loss is to start when you still have hair left, and that is why I use Keeps. They're the sponsor of this video. There's actually a history of hair loss in my family, so when my hair started to thin, I didn't waste any time. Now, treatments of Keeps can take up to 4 to 6 months or more to see results, so it is vital that you act fast, and you have to start early and stick with it. So believe me, if your hair's starting to thin, don't put this off. Start using Keeps now. The sooner you start using Keeps, the more hair you'll save. It's even proven to work on a Marvel villain's scalp. Keeps has more 5-star reviews than any of their competitors, and that is why hundreds of thousands of men trust Keeps for their hair loss prevention medication. So guys, if you notice that you're losing your hair, don't ignore it or hope it goes away. Do something about it. Go to keeps.com/ScreenCrush or click the link in the description to get 50% off your first order. Back to the Easter eggs. So at this point in the series, Jen is a prosecutor, which means that she works with the DA to put people into jail. In the comics and in the show, she switches sides to become a defense attorney, which always creates a fun contrast in the comics. As a superhero, she catches bad guys, and as a lawyer, she defends them in court. This is a photo of the Griffith Observatory, an LA landmark, probably most famous for being in Rebel Without a Cause.
I thought only punks fought with knives.
Then Jen finally gives us a direct address to the camera as we learn her origin story. We learn that she was on a road trip with her cousin Bruce Banner as he explains why his arm is better and he's in human form.
My arm started to heal. It's all because, I made this little device which keeps me in human form.
Now you'll remember we saw a hologram of human Bruce in the post-credits credit to Shang-Chi and everybody
Loses their minds.
And now we know why. His arm was ruined in Endgame, but when he reverts back to Bruce, it helps his arm to heal. And he has to wear a gamma suppressor on his wrist to stay human, very similar to a device that Jen wore in the comics, which allowed her to become She-Hulk when she had a mental block. She's going on and on about Steve Rogers' sex life.
So it seems like he was pretty busy.
Which has been an obsession with women in the MCU for a while.
Was that your first kiss since 1945?
More on that in a bit. Cheetos with chopsticks? Genius. So, mid-drive, they encounter a Sakaran messenger ship. Now, you remember Sakaar is the trash planet from Thor Ragnarok, where Hulk spent a couple years as a gladiator. Now, this is the exact same style of ship as the Grandmaster's orgy yacht in Ragnarok. Now, I do think it's interesting that later on, Bruce is able to identify this ship.
Sakaran Class A courier craft.
Which tells me that now he must remember his entire time on Sakaar. Remember, when he became Banner on Sakaar, he had no idea where he was.
I've been Hulk for 2 years? I'm afraid so.
But maybe when he merged the brains and the brawn, he and the Hawk were suddenly able to share their memories, which would help each of them come to a mutual understanding. So tomorrow we have a video coming out where we go into more detail about what this ship means for the MCU. A World War Hulk movie has been rumored, so it is possible that this ship could take Banner back to Sakaar. Subscribe and make sure you don't miss that video. It's going to be a good one. Now in the comics, Jennifer is shot by a mobster who's involved in a case that she's working on, and Bruce gives her a blood transfusion. I thought the show actually had a much better origin story, because there's no way that this version of Bruce would deliberately infect anyone with his blood. Now notice that when his blood does mix with hers, the reaction is something we've seen before, when Samuel Stearns was exposed to Banner's blood in The Incredible Hulk. Now, at the time, this was setting up Stearns to become a supervillain called the Leader.
Oh, we agreed, no leader. Right. So shut up and do as I say.
But since The Incredible Hulk never got a proper sequel, we've yet to see this character in live action. And that's a shame, because the Leader is as strong as the Hulk is smart, and he would be a great adversary for him to face. Fingers crossed that maybe he'll appear in later episodes of this series. So now Jen's origin has been changed to a car crash, which is a great change that's carefully set up. First of all, it's clever that Bruce is wearing a device that prevents him from changing into the Hulk.
To save money on a budget?
No, well, yes, but no, this is because it means he'll be vulnerable enough to leak some blood without the other guy coming out. Also, there's some fun Easter eggs in this crash. She wakes up in the woods after transforming, just like Edward Norton's Hulk did in The Incredible Hulk. And we see the transformation from Jen's first-person point of view. And this is how the Hulk's first transformation was partly filmed in the 2003 Hulk movie and in the intro of The Incredible Hulk. Plus, the transformation happens near a car. And on the 70s TV show The Incredible Hulk, David Banner transformed for the first time after his car broke down.
Wait, his name was David?
Sure was.
Why?
You wouldn't believe me if I told you.
Try me.
Stan Lee and Lou Ferrigno both said that CBS executives thought the name Bruce sounded too gay.
That's ridiculous.
I know, man, but that's executives for you. All they care about is money. After Jen wakes up, she goes to a roadside bathroom where she meets up with some incredibly supportive women.
You have anywhere to go? I have to call my cousin to get me. Can I borrow somebody's phone?
Oh, yeah, girl. Here you go.
Is this just like what women's bathrooms are like? Do y'all just use this space to look out for each other? Seems like a really supportive environment.
Yes, it does. Very nice.
Yeah, it is. Outside, she tries to avoid a conflict with some dirtbags. Of course, her wanting to avoid these dirtbags has nothing to do with her social life and everything to do with what she says later on.
Do it pretty much every day, because if I don't, I will get called emotional or difficult, or might just literally get murdered.
Now, this show makes it very clear that Jennifer has never suppressed her anger like her cousin Bruce. See, Bruce had an abusive childhood. He suppressed his emotions, which gave him a form of DID and created the Hulk persona, whereas Jen has been processing her emotions in a healthy way for her entire life. Hence, no other guy. When she wakes up and wanders into the beach house, we hear the Avengers theme as a kind of hollow echo, like this is a place where Bruce remembers all those good times with his friends. Jen sees one of Tony's damaged face masks, and guys, look, I spent way too long combing through the MCU looking for what battle this mask is from. Technically, it could be from any of his suits that exploded in Iron Man 3. It's not from the Avengers because Mask 1 is put away neatly and Mask 2 is removed by Thor. Here. In Infinity War, Thanos rips 2 masks off Tony's face. The second one is like totally decimated, but the first one is maybe intact. But the first mask that Thanos rips off is likely the one that Tony uses to send a message to Pepper, and that mask is in pretty good shape. And his mask is also never fully wrecked in Age of Ultron, unless like Hulk damaged it beneath the Hulkbuster armor during the battle, but I doubt it. Now, this could also be a mask from some random Avengers missions that we didn't see on screen, but I think this mask is likely damaged from something that happened off screen in Avengers Endgame. As we've seen, Tony's nanotech can get so badly damaged and depleted that it can't replenish itself into a new mask. Like in No Way Home, how Peter uses nanobots to control Doc's arms, and that means that his mask has to go away. And in Infinity War, Tony's armor is so badly damaged that it no longer regenerates. So what if during the Endgame battle, his nanobots were so badly depleted that he wasn't able to reform his mask when it was ripped from his face, again off screen? And that moment could have happened right here, after Thanos explodes the quantum tunnel, and the next time we see Tony, he's underneath the body of one of Thanos' troops. So Tony wasn't able to replace his mask, leaving his face uncovered for the rest of the final battle. After his death, they recovered the mask from the battlefield, and Bruce kept it as a tribute to his science bro.
Man, you really went in deep on that one.
Yes, I know. And also, this is pretty badass, Bruce put Jen in a Zeppelin shirt.
What are you trying to tell me here, little man, that you don't like Zepp?
I love Led Zeppelin!
Alright, so Bruce explains how her accident happened. Basically that their blood is extremely compatible since they're related, which means that he was able to share his immunity to gamma radiation with her. The other times we've seen people exposed to his blood, the result was
An abomination.
Why does Bruce destroy his blood with lasers and stuff?
Well, because in The Incredible Hulk, a drop of his blood infected a soda, which poor Stan Lee drank, and presumably killed him. But also, his blood is a biological weapon that has already been used to create the abomination. And Bruce was pretty freaked out when he saw that Samuel Stearns was replicating it.
Gotta destroy it.
Wait, what?
You don't understand the power of this thing. It is too dangerous. It cannot be controlled.
Which Stearns was doing only for his own profit, which is sad.
It's like people only do things because they get paid.
So this is the lab that Bruce talked about in Endgame.
18 months in a gamma lab. I put the brains and the brawn together. And now look at me.
This scene is pretty touching. It's the first time we've seen Bruce have a moment to be sad about Tony.
He used to joke that it was a loner, that one day he'd just swing by and take it back.
Tony helped him build this place, which makes sense. It's like totally his style. Beautiful view above ground, by the shore, basement lab, underground. Also, side note, Jen's blood fixes his arm. In our trailer breakdown video, I guess that this show takes place during the blip, hence his uninjured arm. Well,
I was wrong.
I love the part where they talk about her name.
Smart Hulk.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't come up with it. You never have a choice with these names.
Which is true. Most MCU heroes' names are thrust upon them. Captain America was a character invented to sell war bonds. The media named Iron Man.
Iron Man, that's kind of catchy. It's got a nice ring to it. I mean, it's not technically accurate to see it's a gold titanium alloy.
There's also
Night Monkey! It's Nightlight!
and hell, Scarlet Witch, Vision, Thor, all named by other people. I'm glad they at least acknowledged like how old this joke is getting.
I need you to be the Ant-Man. Is it too late to change the name?
Bruce then breaks out his binder, telling Jen she's going on a multi-year journey, saying he's been the Hulk for 15 years, which, if this is still 2023, the year post-blip, that would set this 15 years after 2008's Incredible Hulk. In the lab, Jen references how Pixar movies manipulate her emotions.
Put on a Pixar movie. When Bing Bong jumps out of the wagon and Inside Out.
Oh yeah, the imaginary friend, Bing Bong, when he sacrifices himself for everyone else and a piece of Riley's childhood dies.
Take her to the moon for me. Okay?
Does that scene make humans emotional?
No! Covered in my own tears. So this is the lab that Bruce used to trigger his own rage response. You'll notice that it's kind of modeled after the unbreakable cage that S.H.I.E.L.D. designed for Hulk in the Avengers.
The cell was just
In case you needed to kill me, but you can't. I know, I tried.
I loved when he assumed that Jen was savage and tried to calm her down like a horse.
Oh, whoa, easy, girl. Easy.
Then he actually makes reference to his alter ego's name, like he did in the Avengers.
You don't have another guy to wrestle with for 10 years. I put a bullet in my mouth, and the other guy spit it out.
And Bruce also talks about the Hulk with a driving metaphor.
You really don't feel like there's another hand on the wheel at all.
Which is how he described it in Ragnarok.
I mean, in the past, I always felt like Hulk and I each had a hand on the wheel. But this time, it's like he had the keys of the car and I was locked in the trunk.
Then he runs through a greatest hits list of all his different changes.
Usually, I'd fall out of a jet, or I'd get knocked out by a robot, and I'd wake up as Banner. Or Natasha, for a little while, would tell me a lullaby.
And frankly, the Hulk's transformation logic has never fully made sense in the MCU. I mean, he accidentally transforms into the Hulk in the Avengers. Then he has a conversation with Harry Dean Stanton in a deleted scene, and then all of a sudden...
I'm always angry.
So I love that the show actually acknowledges this.
Walk me through how that worked again.
I don't have a great explanation for it.
And then we get one of the most unusual training montages of all time.
Being a Hulk asks for balance.
Usually a training montage is about a character building up their physical body and learning new skills. But in this montage, Jennifer doesn't need any help being a Hulk. She already does yoga, so balance isn't a problem. She's a natural learning to control her new strength, controlling her temper. Bruce's real lesson for her goes back to that opening monologue.
I don't think you have thought through how dangerous this level of power is. Do you know the damage you can cause?
He is trying to show her that now her gift carries a great responsibility to serve the world.
And who's gonna protect the world if it isn't people like us?
It's a tough lesson to teach a lawyer. Yeah, it was me. This line,
I'm telling you, when people start seeing you as a monster that never goes away,
hits really hard when you realize that now Bruce has the Hulk's memories, so he remembers this. He also trains her in meditation like he learned in The Incredible Hulk. I love how quickly the rock throwing became another superhero pissing contest. And Jen basically walks away from it like Natasha walked away from the boys trying to lift Thor's hammer.
No, that's not a question I need answered.
And she executes a superhero landing, which is actually much easier on her knee joints and spine than the overused three-point landing of her cousin.
Such a poser.
And as he chucks her off the cliff, she gives him the finger, maybe a nod to Star-Lord doing the same to Thanos. Boom! Now, Banner's mentorship role is one that most Avengers have kind of fallen into this phase, as the actors nurture a younger generation. We've seen this in the Multiverse of Madness, Thor: Love and Thunder, Hawkeye, and Bruce even begins this mentorship role in Shang-Chi.
stay safe. Welcome to the circus.
And then the two of them make like a Marvel hero and drink. Have you ever noticed that? Like, heroes these days really like to drink.
Am I drunk?
Like, even Batman had a drink in Batman vs. Superman. And, oh man, poor Steve Rogers.
I can't get drunk.
In the comics, Tony Stark was an alcoholic, which was kind of hinted at in the first two Iron Man movies, but the studio pivoted away from this as his actual addiction became being Iron Man.
Well, Tony mostly drank. Just sat around complaining about Steve.
Remember, Banner and Tony would have built this lab after Infinity War, when Tony would have blamed Steve for the loss to Thanos.
And guess what, Cap? We lost. And you weren't there.
And then she tries to go to town in Hulk's Jeep, and guess what? There was a Hulk Jeep toy. Which has to be one of the lamest Hulk toys of all time. I mean, look, basically every Hulk toy is lame when you compare it to Hulk hands.
Got the power of the Hulk in my hands, and I like it!
As she's leaving, Banner tries to stop her with the Hulk clap, which was a blast to do in the 2003 video game. Then she figures out that frequent Hulk claps create a kind of sonic boom tunnel like the Stark cannons that gave Hulk a hard time in The Incredible Hulk. Now, I like that after all their fights, it's the surfboards that finally break his glasses. As they're fixing the bar, she uses her direct address powers for the first time.
So if you want to go back to life as a lawyer, I respect that.
Thanks. He doesn't mean that.
Which seems to open up a whole can of Hulk dogs. Bruce can hear her. He thinks it's weird. She thinks it's weird. We have a whole video coming out in a couple of days about this, where we break down this ability and how it factors into Deadpool joining the MCU. Like, what are the logistical rules behind this?
What the hell's going on?
So subscribe so you don't miss that video. The episode's final scene is in the trial, when Jen gives her speech on responsibility.
And I never have to be a Hulk. Okay, so now I'm gonna go win this case.
Not knowing that pretty soon she'll have to make a similar decision to use her power to protect people. This whole scene, by the way, also seemed like a nod to the original Hulk TV movie and the first Stan Lee Marvel cameo, The Trial of the And And by the way, this man is a key character in a great She-Hulk run by writer Dan Slott. This is Steve Coulter as Holden Holloway. He's currently defending the defendant in Jen's case, but in the comics, he goes on to hire Jen to work at his firm, working cases involving metahumans. And then Titania storms in, and she is a classic She-Hulk villain from the comics. She was a skinny girl named Skeeter who got super strength from Dr. Doom during the first Secret Wars. Later, she had a grudge against Shulky and fought her any chance she could get. More than likely, she's attacking this trial because the defendant did something to give her powers. So I'm wondering if this corporation that they've put on trial is actually Roxxon. See, Roxxon is the standard evil corporation in Marvel and in the MCU. They're always spilling toxic waste into rivers, poisoning babies, trying to conquer the world while collaborating with Malekith. You get the idea. Maybe the neglect this client showed actually gave Titania her powers, and she storms into the courtroom to get her revenge. And the song at this ending fight is That Girl by Eve.
They wanna know who's that girl.
Afterwards, the end credits are done as court reporter drawings, which I did not realize until I saw this show are now made on a computer. We see her submitting an Avengers mug as evidence, her Captain America Virgin chart as she tries to figure out when Steve punched his V card. Notice we see Peggy Carter and a USO performer on this. And then on Venice Beach, LA, which is famous for bodybuilders. And here we see a group of Avengers cosplayers in front of the Chinese theater, where actually several Marvel films have held their premieres. This drawing of her on the steps is an homage to this classic cover from that Dan Slott Comics run. And then we get one of my all-time favorite mid-credit scenes in MCU history. Here, Jen uses sneaky lawyer tactics to figure out if Steve Rogers was a virgin. And this...
Did you see that ass? Like, that ass did not deserve to die a virgin.
is, of course, a reference to this.
That is America's ass.
And now, we can all rest knowing that Steve Rogers hooked up with one of those dancers from his touring USO shows. Because, like, of course he did. He was in show business after all. The rules are different. What did you think about the episode? Let me know in the comments below, or you can @me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.